Surprise! Because the last two Plotcasts were so well received, and because so much happened at the Chronicles of Mythodea 2024, we decided to do a quick Plotcast between the two cons Chronicles and JDS. There are some events in the Chronicles that will be very relevant to the JDS and the Realm of Roses. Anyone who was at the con is probably already grinning knowingly. For everyone else, buckle up, the Chronicles was a wild ride for the Realm. Because the time is so short, this time it's only about the Realm of Roses. We are leaving out all the other events as much as possible. As always, remember our disclaimers. First, we do not claim to be the only correct truth. Second, the Plotcast is from the perspective of the Realm of Roses, particularly important this time. And third, we do not intentionally tell misinformation. And with that, it's time again. Time in. The journey to Diregard. The Nachricht to Loch had called for people to travel to an area north of the Realm of Roses, which they had named the Valley of Impermanence. The reason for this trip was the final connection of the Cradle of Dawn and Dusk, the mighty Terra sanctuary that has accompanied us for years. The Valley of Impermanence was part of the area that was conquered by Garvan in the Storm Knights the year before, and so we expected enemy contact. Scouts even reported about Skagen and the Black Dynasty, who were also there alongside the undead. The troops of the realm and many allies gathered in the devastated Quingard to set out together. But Miro Klippenwald, the Necessary of Roses, contacted selected troops a few days before their departure and hired them for a special mission. His goal, he said, was to find a way to separate the Archon's power from the land. In his eyes, after the death of the Archon, part of this power should pass to his Tulhen. This was the case with Amir after Karl Weber's death. But the events on Diregard a year ago seemed to have tied up this power. Miro, a group of magicians, as well as the mercenary group of the Kyler and the Falcon Guard, set out in the middle of the night towards the fallen fortress. After a journey through the dangerous forest, they reached the Diregard and began investigating. A place of power, the power of the Archon. That much quickly became clear. But also, the Archon's scepter, the staff of power of the Realm of Roses, was destroyed, and its power was absorbed into this place. The hope of recovering this powerful artifact was dashed. Instead, with the help of those present, Miro cast a spell that allowed him to forcibly separate part of the Diregard's power from it and take it with him to the Valley of Impermanence as a connection to this place. A thorny vine, severed and kept in a jar, accompanied the group from that moment. A scout, Lambert of the Grey Souls, was left behind, and the rest of the group headed into the Valley of Impermanence. Secrets uncovered. Their detour brought them into the valley a little later than the allies, so they traveled behind enemy troops. The group's journey became chaotic, as enemy contact forced them to change direction several times. Miro in particular seemed to make erratic decisions. When the group saw Black Dynasty troops in the distance, he wanted to go to them for information. But the opportunity didn't arise. A possible reason for this behavior emerged soon after in the fighting. The Black Dynasty asked for troops from the Realm of Roses and did not attack them. At the same time, it became known that Miro also ordered his troops not to attack the Dynasty. The Dark Alliance's attack was averted by the Allies, but the victory was overshadowed by a well-kept secret of the Realm of Roses, which has now been brought to light. Rumors spread like wildfire that the Realm of Roses had a treaty with the Black Dynasty. And the rumors came true, to the horror of many. The story went like this. When the Storm Knights were at their worst, and the land was at its most vulnerable, 3 of the rulers of the Realm of Roses, Neom, Vincent, and Miro were forced to make a decision. About a year ago, just after the Convent of Elements, news reached them that the Black Dynasty stood with troops on the plains before Viria. The message was a threat, but also an offer from the Black Prince. The Nirme, the Archon, and the Nekesray called in the emissary Fenric to Frostwacht, and together they deliberated. An attack by the dynasty at this point would not only destroy all plans to reclaim land, but would also result in the loss of thousands of lives and approximately half of the realm falling to the dynasty. Ashan, Ozymandias, Waldeslebens, the Red Moor, just a few of the areas that would certainly have been lost. The rulers, under time pressure, decided to send Fenric and a diplomatic corps to the dynasty in order to possibly stop an attack. Not officially confirmed, but it can be concluded from his story that Miro Klippenwald also was one of the diplomats. He emphasized several times that he had relieved his Nyama of the burden of making an agreement with this enemy, as his office required. The diplomats were able to see for themselves the dynasty's troop strength and were presented with a treaty. 4 points. The dynasty would not intervene in Garban's war against the realm. In return, the Realm of Roses would not attack Viria's territories for a year. Protection for dynasty survey troops was another point, also for a year. And finally, part of the contract was that the Realm of Roses named 5 ambassadors for Viria, also within the 1-year deadline. Apparently, the points were far too easy to fulfill for the Realm of Roses, clearly a diplomatic trap. But the realm was outmaneuvered. Seeing no other way out, the northern border was already dependent on support from allied troops. The Realm of Roses put a signature on the treaty. A Lord Goldsee, representative of the realm through emissary Frostwacht, signed the treaty. A signature that certainly saved thousands of lives in the Realm of Roses, but also one that condemned it from the perspective of many allies. Nothing happened for almost a year. The contract was and remained a well-kept secret even after the Archon's death. A few more weeks and it would be as if it had never passed. A game of risk that the realm would lose. In those days, in the Valley of Impermanence, the dynasty openly demanded compliance with the treaty. 5 ambassadors should be named here and now. The secret came to the table. Viria claimed the Valley of Impermanence as the city's territory and had sent survey parties to it. The dynasty's deception had eliminated one of its enemies. And the Black Prince announced a visit to court for renegotiation. Experimental diplomacy. This visit occurred on the evening of the next day. The Black Prince and his entourage of Idalfi of the Continuum appeared at the Roses' court under the eyes of many guests. As expected, the dynasty demanded compliance with the last point of the treaty. 5 ambassadors were to be appointed to go to Viria, together with the dynasty's troops. The dynasty also made it clear that it viewed the Valley of Impermanence as its own territory. To do this, it referred to an alleged discovery of a monument that testified to a great victory of the City of Veritas, on whose ruins Viria was probably built. Also part of this victory was a conquest of land, the very one we are in and then some. The dynasty proudly announced this revelation. But the pride of the dynasty met the pride of the peacock. Ramirez and the prince almost got into an argument, at the end of which both parties threatened to break the contract. When the dynasty left the camp, war was in the air. Ramirez called for allies to be recruited to fight against the dynasty. Then he announced further difficult news. Fenric zu Frostwacht had disappointed him and had therefore given up his position as emissary. Fenric himself did not object, but left in silence to make his own plans. While the trust of the seals in the Realm of Roses continued to waver, many allies were found among the city-states of Mitraspera. The rest of the day was devoted to reassuring allies and winning them over to the defense of the realm, while all the other tasks of the campaign had to be solved still. Another message had arrived at the camp in the meantime. Lambert, the scout who had stayed at Diregard, had turned up. He reported that shortly after Miro's special mission had departed, a group of undead had emerged from the vines of the Diregard. It quickly became clear that this was a result of Miro's experiments there. At this point, however, Miro initially ignored all the criticism that came in his way. He had commissioned Talakor and Farouk from Schönweiler to investigate the vine from Diregard. There were theories that it held the power of the scepter, but many things were still unknown. A major analysis, with the realm as witnesses and help, should bring certainty in the evening. Talakor was supposed to travel into the vine's dream, but things turned out differently. The vine overpowered Miro's mind and pulled him into a dream, and shortly afterwards everyone else present as well. In the dream, those present saw Miro, bleeding and surrounded by vines, and an entity that seemed to be the embodiment of the vine. Then she began to speak.
The scepter of thorns is destroyed. We were once a part of the scepter, a consecration, a wish, the power of a new icon. But just as the icon is gone and is now something else, so too the scepter is gone and a part of something else. We are the promise we made to an icon, to the realm, to the land, to Mitraspera. We are your power. We are the scepter. We are the thorns. We are the beings and their desires. We are a dream. We are a vision. We are the realm of roses. Our chalice is suffering. He is afraid. And that is why he has reached for our strength. But it is needed elsewhere at this moment. We have already shown him why. And he has asked us to show us all too. We agree. But each and every one of us has to agree. You, and you, and you. We do not decide for others.
Miro extended his entwined arm, and then invited those present to touch the vines. As they did so, all the lights went out and Miro began to speak. This time, however, the voice of an undead also intervened. Can you see it? Deep beneath the Diregard, beneath the vines that protect us. An abyss. A pit of hell. Hundreds, thousands of bodies perished alone in darkness and captivity. The victims of Gavan, now loyal to him. An army of Gavan. Insane, desperate, murderous. There is a dark hole in the heart of the continent, and from it they will flow like black blood. And it will flow into our rivers and poison the land. It will invade our villages and devastate them. It will flood our cities and destroy them.
Islafwin Lakeheart. Your Archon sacrifice has buried us again, but we wait. This power is our prison, from now. Come, surrender and use this power. Open the gate to the depths for us. Or wait in despair, and we will open it ourselves.
We are your power. We are the scepter. We are the thorns. We are the beings and their desires. We are a dream. We are a vision. We are the realm of roses. Our chalice cannot command this power. Not yet. The power we have all given to the Icon. The power of the realm. It shall not be taken. We have formed a wall of roses to close a wound where our Icon has fallen. There, those of us who wish to assist a coming Icon shall witness the horror that requires the power of the man-thing. We are our power, but someone must lead it.
When the Realm of Roses awoke from this dream, they tried to interpret what they had seen. Something dark lurked beneath the Diregard, and a future Archon would have to witness the calamity there. From that moment on, Ramirez sought support to move to Diregard after the campaign and descend into the depths there. And many promised to support him. Perhaps the Realm of Roses would soon have a new Archon. Entanglements and the past. The next morning, another shock. During the night, Fenric had sneaked out of the camp and left nothing behind but a letter.
Miro, Ramirez, Neom, my dear friends. The pride of a Nord is a curious thing. I share its burning agony with many of my countrymen, and just as often as it stifles our actions, it awakens us to injustices, complacency, and wakes a burning passion to act. Please be sure that I hold no grudges, and that my heart is filled with love and pride over the things we have built. I must make right and seize this opportunity to bring an edge in our fight against the Forsaken. Long enough was I complacent and afraid to act. I am no more. Should you be questioned for my actions, let this prove that I acted alone and on no one's instructions. As you received this letter, I will have erased great parts of my mind to ensure the safety of the realm and my dear ones, and I will have departed many hours ago to infiltrate Viria. Do not risk anyone's life on coming after me. Trust in my talents, my wit, and my stubbornness to not die. I will return with a worthwhile price, and again share a drink in the harbor with you. Should I truly not return, I ask this of you. First, keep my songs alive and in good memory. May it remain a gift to you. Second, help my family on Tamriel defeat the foes that threaten them. I have left notes on this in my office in Loravinde. I know my decision might make you angry or sad or confused, and I am truly sorry for the pain I have caused. I leave because I must. It is a certainty too great to ignore. Whatever powers still watch over me or the land, I pray they return me to your side, and watch over you as well. Give my best to Countess Aveline, the bright future of the realm. And to Raoul, source of friendship and belonging like no other. Your friend always, Fenric.
Many of Fenric's friends and companions were in shock, but it didn't help. Many tasks still had to be solved. On this day, however, another enemy appeared. The Circle of Redemption. The criminals and fanatics who had supposedly not only seen the end of the land, but also wanted to bring it about. They had sided with the Dark Alliance. One of them even managed an assassination attempt on Kaela, the leader of the Fortress of Diversity. Luckily, healers arrived quickly on the scene. The Circle held an important location in the Valley of Impermanence for a long time and allowed the Dark Alliance some victories. But eventually, the fanatics were cornered, thanks in part to the help of the squad led by Sir Antonius. The Circle then brought about its own end. However, 2 of the Circle's magicians managed to escape. Who knows what happened to them and their magical knowledge. In the evening, after most of the battles had been fought, the Dynasty returned again. Surprisingly, it announced that 5 ambassadors had been found, but not for the Realm of Roses. Ramirez, now in a quandary, could not publicly name those as ambassadors of the realm, and so they parted ways again. The fulfillment of the contract was still pending, but shortly before the end of the campaign, there were rumors that Moor had volunteered as ambassadors, this time for the Realm of Roses. Of course, the realm did not officially recognize this, but with a bit of luck, the contract would still be fulfilled, and an attack by the Dynasty could be prevented. Nevertheless, while Ramirez was gathering his companions for the advance against the Diregard, Sir Leon was preparing to defend the realm on a broad front with all possible allies. The power of the Dynasty, a soldier's report. A few days after returning from the Valley of Impermanence, the forces of the elements stood ready to repel a possible attack. What happened next is summarized in the following report from a soldier. When the alarm bells rang through the camp that morning, an icy shiver ran down my spine. Something was not right. It was a warm spring day. The sun was shining and warming us, but icy winds came from the north. Viria marched. The rumors that the contract had still been fulfilled and that no battle was imminent turned out to be false, or so it seemed. We prepared ourselves in silence, with concentration. Some of us said our prayers for the coming battle, and buried faces were everywhere. I still remember the celebrations the night before, the eve of a new war. It seemed so distant, so far away as we are from our homeland. In a foreign land, the Realm of Roses to protect it. Some said the Roses were traitors and didn't deserve our protection. Others saw the necessity in the actions of the rulers that had led to this situation. They were waiting for a war that could start at any moment. We looked to the future with concern. That night, 2 scouting parties went out. Experienced people who had already seen and survived a lot. My friend Gerwin was one of them. I hugged him one more time before he disappeared into the darkness of the night. Little did I know that I would never see him again alive. This morning we looked north. In the early hours of the morning, one of our scouting parties returned, severely decimated. Viria was moving, the report said. The other squad, Gerwin's squad, had been held back behind enemy lines. All allied camps, troops from all over Mitraspera prepared for battle. Blood would soon flow on the plains of Viria. The commander-in-chief of the troops, Sir Leon of the Realm of Roses, had the fighters line up in wide formation. It was said that the troops would come from the northeast. rumors spread about what the scouts had seen. The sun was just rising over the distant mountains and blinding us. But we stood bravely, ready to give our lives if necessary. The Dark Alliance couldn't win here. We didn't want to believe the reports from the scout teams. Not yet. What they said was too frightening. Hours passed as we waited. Suddenly a murmur went through the crowds. There, on the horizon, there was movement. No, the horizon itself was moving. A black and blue line approaching. An armada was coming toward us in perfect unison. The ground seemed to shake as thousands of warriors approached our troops. 2 of them against 1 of us, and they would rise again. Our end was marching towards us. I saw the faces change. Determination turned to disbelief, then anger, then fear. Tears filled the eyes of many of us. Only the toughest, most determined, most death-seeking troops dared to joke. "Looks like we are almost over it," they said. Anyone who had already fought in a battle knew. It was too late to flee, too late to prevent this battle. The Element Believers' prayers grew louder, and the new wave of determination surged among us as the forces of Viria approached. Even if we didn't win here, we would still be buying time for a second line of defense to form behind us. Hasty messenger birds were sent. Nobody had expected this superior force. It was clear to all of us that the birds would not reach their destination in time. Today was the beginning of the end of the Realm of Roses. Finally, Viria's forces came to a standstill only a few miles away from us. Orders were shouted. "Hold the line! Get ready! Hold on! For the elements!" Weapons and bows were drawn. We held our breath. Finally, we heard the voices, magically amplified, echoing to us. They proclaimed the words of the Black Prince. The treaty had been honored, but it also ended today. They would not attack today, they said. They also mentioned something about us thanking the ambassadors, whatever they meant by that. Then they threatened us to cross their borders, and that they were just waiting for it. And then? Then I saw emotionless warriors throw the shattered bodies of the missing scouting party on the ground in front of them. It was too far away, but I thought I saw Gerwin's face contorted in pain. He looked over at me, accusingly. When the words faded away, there was a complete silence for a while. Then, out of nowhere, the sound of the Black Dynasty troops all turning at the same moment and marching away. The earth shook again in time with their steps, but this time the noise became quieter and quieter. They simply left the dead scouts lying there. Afterwards, there were angry discussions. Some of the officers wanted to go after the enemy troops to stab them in the back. Some wanted to reclaim the land that the dynasty now claimed for itself. But Sir Leon gave no order to do so. To attack would have been to send all the souls gathered here to their deaths. I was happy when we received the order to retreat to camp. We stayed a few days longer, then some of us left for the Convent of Elements. Others held the fort in case Viria returned. Not to stop them, but to warn those who would come after them. I pray that this day is still far away. Report from the soldier Andreas Wiesenläufer. And with that, our mini Plotcast comes to an end. The Convention of the Elements, hosted by the Northern Seal, is approaching, and many of the events of the spring campaign will play a role there as well. We'll see you there very, very soon, and wish you a great time on Mythodea. As always, many thanks to everyone who helped us set it up, to all our fellow players and the entire community. Time out.